Introvert, extrovert, ambivert. We hear these words all the time, but for highly sensitive women, the truth is more nuanced. In today's episode, we unpack how sensitivity affects your social energy, why so many highly sensitive people assume they're introverts, and how learning to honor your unique rhythm can help you feel more grounded, more connected, and more at peace with who you are.
Hey lady, welcome to the Highly Sensitive Woman podcast. Do you struggle with self-doubt, setting boundaries, or feeling overwhelmed? My name is Alyssa, and I'm a highly sensitive woman who spent years trying to fit in, ignoring my own needs, and living in constant fear of disappointing others. But I finally discovered the power of embracing who I am, and now I don't feel so broken. In this podcast, you'll learn to find your voice, set boundaries, and live with bold confidence and inner peace. Grab a cozy blanket. It's time to connect with someone just like you.
Welcome back to the Highly Sensitive Woman. It is episode 41, and we are in the throes of the holiday season. And I wanted to take some time to talk about our social energy because during this time of year, we find ourselves being in more social situations. And a few weeks ago, I was having dinner with someone I hadn't seen in several years. It was one of those, long overdue catch-ups where you sit down and it instantly feels like no time has passed. We were laughing and reminiscing and, just kind of swapping updates about work and life and all the things that had happened since the last time we saw each other. And kind of somewhere in the middle of our conversation, she said, just kind of offhandedly, well, you've always been such an introvert. And I felt this like tiny jolt in my body, almost like my body bristled before my mind even had a time to catch up. And it wasn't that there's anything wrong with being an introvert, because there absolutely isn't. But the messaging that I have absorbed over the years have kind of shaped that word into something kind of negative that feels a little bit small and honestly, like in a way, very limiting. It's often associated as as if it's a synonym with shy or withdrawn or less capable, and something that needs to be fixed or overcome. And so when she said it, I noticed that I felt defensive, and a part of me wanted to say, that's not the whole story of me, and honestly not entirely accurate. And I didn't in the moment. Later, I just kind of reflected on why it hit me so strongly and why that single word stirred up so much emotion when it had no negative intent at all. And I realized it wasn't about introversion. It really was about labels and how quickly, as women, we are categorized, and especially highly sensitive women. And often those labels kind of don't encompass our complexity. They kind of put us in a very simple box. And the conversation that I had a few weeks ago with Sarah really kind of fed into this, because it was right around the same time that I was having this experience. And it made me realize that so often we describe ourselves and we allow others to describe us without questioning whether or not that label actually fits us and fits the way we navigate through the world, the way that our nervous systems work, the way that our hearts need to be filled and to give to others. And if you have ever been labeled with something that didn't quite feel like it was the full truth of who you are, if you have been boxed in by words that didn't quite capture your warmth and your connection, and you've just paused and asked yourself, wait, is that really me? I just want you to know that you are not alone. And today I want to explore this with you, especially as we are in the midst of the holiday season and more social gatherings. Because so often we use the words introvert, extrovert, an ambivert, like they are personality traits, but they were never really meant to define your identity. What they actually describe is how you refuel your energy. So I just kind of want to start with some definitions. Introverts recharge with solitude. Too much external stimulation drains their nervous system. Extroverts recharge through connection, and spending too much time in solitude drains their nervous system. And then ambiverts kind of move pretty seamlessly between both worlds. Sometimes ambiverts need quiet, and sometimes they are really craving being in the company of others. Highly sensitive people, about 70% of them do fall into the category of being introverts, but about 30% are not. So your sensitivity is not the same thing as your social energy. The two are certainly related because so many of us who are highly sensitive women, we find that our energy can be drained because of the sights, the sounds, the emotional tone, the subtle shifts in people in our environments. And that depth of processing is truly beautiful, but it's also taxing. And we find ourselves saying that we can't do things because socializing just exhausts me, when really it's not necessarily that the socializing and being around people is what is exhausting, but it can be the stimulation that comes from those environments without building in some recovery. And so once you understand that the two are not synonymous, everything begins to shift. And the question becomes less about labeling yourself and just really more about learning how to support your sensory system and your emotional regulation. And, for a long time, I confused my sensitivity with limitation and told myself things like, I can't handle social situations and I become drained too easily and I should cancel because I am not built for this. And so I withdrew and I isolated a ton, and oftentimes more than what I actually needed. And underneath what was truly happening was a lack of regulation. And it was when I started to embrace my sensitivity instead of fighting against it that I learned to ask myself a completely different question. And the question that I now ask is, why do I feel like I need time in solitude right now? That question really became life-changing, and I realized that it wasn't that I wanted to avoid people. I wanted to just be in different situations to help limit the overwhelm. And I also needed to do, honestly, just a better job with my calendar. So I was able to shift away from canceling things entirely and instead chose, coffee dates instead of crowded dinners, and going for walks instead of being in very loud, overstimulating places, so that I could truly connect and have those one-on-one conversations or maybe even small group conversations. And instead of being in those like loud, very overstimulating situations. And what happened was surprising to me at first, because instead of being drained by being around the people, I found myself being energized. And that self-acceptance and learning how to work with my body created flexibility and allowed me to start doing so much more than what I thought that I was capable of. And here's the thing. Emotional healing allows you to understand that you are not defective for needing rest. You are not broken for craving connection, and you are not difficult for requiring regulation. You're just sensitive, and that changes the rhythm of your life in very tender and beautiful ways. So I wanted to give some practical tools to honor your sensitivity as well as your social energy. So for our sensitive introverts, you tend to recharge alone, and that alone time is incredibly sacred. where you have kind of a growth opportunity is allowing yourself to have that solitude without disappearing into it and still allowing yourself to show up in ways that you really want to. So, what is critical is being intentional with your calendar and not overcommitting, and also scheduling time for recharging both before and after social events. Another thing that can be really helpful is those transition times before and after events. So sometimes before an event, I will listen to energizing music to kind of get me pumped up and energized and ready for the social event. Sometimes I need to get myself a little bit grounded, so I might do calming music instead, or some breathing exercises, maybe some yoga before I go. And then I also, and I know that I have mentioned this before, how much I enjoy quiet walks in nature as a way to recharge and just kind of reconnect with myself after I've been in social situations. One thing that you can do to start building your way up to being able to manage more social interactions is having one meaningful interaction per week, or maybe every other week, that nourishes you rather than draining you. For the sensitive extroverts, you are sensitive, but you're also very relationally fueled. And so what can come up is some shame around that I need people, and that conflicts with my sensitivity. And I just want you to honor that you can have both, that you can need being around people and you can still be sensitive. What you might find is that you want to be in smaller, emotionally safe circles and potentially limit your sensory stimulation while you're in those settings. And then again, allowing for some time to recharge when you are out of those settings, but you might not need to be as intentional with your calendaring, because you can have capacity for more social settings in a given week than maybe an introvert. And then for the sensitive ambiverts, your nervous system needs can kind of change day to day and week to week. So, what is really important for you is an awareness of what you need in that moment, in that day, in that week, and really asking yourself, do I need connection or do I need quiet? And scheduling both, not allowing yourself to get too far on one side or the other, because both will be draining for you. So, scheduling social time and scheduling alone time. And then, especially during this holiday season, really honoring your seasonal energy, because as we are busier, you're going to find yourself being in more social settings. And so just being mindful of that you don't overextend and allow yourself some time for that inward reflection. And you don't necessarily fit into one or the other. You have the opportunity to flow between recharging in social settings and recharging in solitude. What is important to remember is whether you are an introvert, an extrovert, or an ambivert, your sensitivity is not something to overcome, and it is something that is separate from your social energy. Your sensitivity is just a compass pointing you toward the right rhythm of connection and recovery that feels authentic and aligned for you. And that when you stop trying to fit into labels that either you have given yourself or others have given to you, and you start honoring what is unique to your nervous system and your true needs, then connection becomes easier, rest becomes true rest, and you're not losing energy with thoughts and judgment that are coming during those times of rest, and you feel more rejuvenated. And finally, self-trust becomes the foundation for everything that you do. If you realize that you've been pushing yourself past your natural rhythm or dimming your needs to kind of fit into the world that you live in, I want you to know that you don't have to navigate this alone. Through the end of January 2026, I'm offering 4 free sessions to 7 women who feel ready to begin honoring their sensitivity instead of fighting it. These sessions are just a space for you to get clarity on your social energy pattern, to understand how to regulate your nervous system, to unlearn some of those old limiting beliefs that may be driving some current patterns, and allow you to create some new relational and personal rhythms. So if this feels aligned for you, I invite you to email me using the link in the show notes to schedule a complimentary consultation, and we'll explore whether this support would feel nourishing and right for you in this moment. Because you deserve to learn to live in a deeper harmony with who you already are. Until next time, take care.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, would you take 30 seconds and share it with a friend who may be feeling like she's broken too? I'd love it if you'd leave a quick review for the show on Apple Podcasts. It brings me so much joy to know this podcast is helping you. Now it's time for me to stop talking and go soothe my senses in nature. I'll meet you back here next week for another episode. Take care.